Hey, welcome, it's Cassie. Today I'm going to show you how to make some fake waffles, and we're going to do two different kinds, and you do not need to ruin your waffle maker or go buy a mold or anything like that. I'm going to show you how to do it really easily. So we're going to start out with some clay. I'm going to use Modelite. You can use Model Magic or any kind of clay you want, actually. So condition your clay. And then we're going to add a little bit of coloring to it. So we're going to do some yellow, and this is just yellow from Apple Barrel. I'm going to put a little bit of that in, and then I'm going to put some Territorial Beige. And waffles tend to be a little bit more yellowy than brown for the base color, so you probably want a little bit more yellow than brown in this mixture. And then just mix it together until you have a nice uniform color. So I have my clay mixed up, and I put it into the container to keep it from drying out because I want to show you how we're going to make the squares in the waffle. So I have some polymer clay here, and this is a brand new, I mean not brand new, but it's still in the shape that it came in the package. So I'm going to use this, and I'm just going to cut off a part of it. So I've already made one of these, and this one is bigger. I want to make a smaller one this time around. So the second waffle that we make, I'm going to make it smaller squares. So I'm just taking my clay blade and I'm cutting it down that way, and then I'm going to cut it into a square. So now I'm going to bake this in my oven according to the package directions, and then that's going to be like a little kind of like stamper for the squares in the waffle. Okay, so now that I've got that in the oven baking, I'm going to go ahead and make the one with the larger squares. So I'm just going to take my rolling pin and I'm going to roll this out to whatever thickness you want. I mean, waffles can be different thicknesses, you know, so whatever you like for it to be. Like if you want it to be more like a Belgian waffle, then you can make it thicker. If you want it more like the store-bought kind, then roll it out a little bit thinner. Okay, now I'm just going to use my clay blade and I'm going to cut this into a rectangle. So now I got my shape there, and so I'm going to take my little square stamper and I'm going to make the indentations. So on a real waffle, there's a little bit of an edge here, and then there's like a little edge in between each square. So I'm going to leave some space. Okay, and then if you need to touch any of them up or anything, you know, if any of them got kind of smushed or started popping out with the other ones, then just go back in and press it in again. So now I'm going to shade this up so that it looks like it is freshly baked or toasted. So I'm going to use some Territorial Beige, and I'm just going to do like one little drop because we'll be dry brushing this on, so it's not going to take much. And then Harvest Orange. This is like my go-to toasted color, so if you've seen my other videos of baked goods, you've probably seen this paint mixture before. And then yellow. And then just mix those up. Okay, and then we're just gonna get almost all the paint off of the brush so that we can just lightly brush this color on to make it look toasted. And usually inside of the squares doesn't really get toasty, so you don't really have to worry about those. Just go on the raised parts. And then along the edge as well. Now we need to make a little pat of butter. So I'm gonna get a piece of my clay. You don't really need a very big piece. And then I'm going to color this with antique white. And a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of pale daffodil. So not even a drop, like just a speck. Because if it's too yellowy, you're going to make it look fake. Okay, so now I'm going to press this out with my fingers. And then I'm going to use my blade and just cut it into a square. And then just refine this shape a little. Butter's kind of like rounded on the corners. Not a lot rounded, but it's not like super pointy on the corners. So you want to just kind of get the shape how you want it. Okay, so if you're not going to put syrup over this butter, you might want to cover it with like a couple of coats of Mod Podge to make it look kind of shiny, because you know butter's got that a little bit shiny look to it. So not super shiny, but you know what I mean. So I'm going to show you how to make the syrup now. So you're going to need some resin. I'm using this Envirotech one because this is just the one that I have and it's really old. I need to use it up. So you can see it's kind of turning yellow, but it still works. So I'm going to need equal parts of the hardener and the resin. So I'm going to measure those out on a, I'm going to use a shipping scale. You could use a food scale, or you could just measure it out in like a little disposable measuring cup or something like that. So I ended up with 22 grams. So I have 11 grams of hardener and 11 grams of resin there. And I'm going to color these with alcohol ink. So I'm going to use yellow, and I'm also going to use brown. So I started out with 4 drops of yellow and 2 drops of brown. And I'm going to mix this up. I have to mix it for 2 minutes. And I'm going to be pretty careful when I'm stirring so that I don't end up with a bunch of bubbles in it. So I'm going to stir slowly for 2 minutes. And then I'll see how the color looks, if I need to add more or not. So looking at the color here on the edge, I think I want to add a little bit more color to this. I just want to make sure it shows up really well on my waffle. So I'm going to add some more yellow because I think it could use some more yellow, and then I'll see what it looks like from there. Yeah, that looks perfect. So I ended up using, in this 22 grams of resin, I used 6 drops of yellow and 2 drops of brown. Okay, so now I'm going to get my waffle back over here, and I'm going to put the butter on top, right in the middle. And then, so I have this on wax paper. If you pour the resin and you have it like dripping off onto wax paper, it will it'll come off. So that's a good place for letting it dry. And then I'm just going to pour this on however you want it to look, however you want it to pour. So I'm going to go over my butter, and then I like it to drip off of the edge, so I'm making it drippy. I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so I've got my clay all colored with the paint, just like the first one. So I'm going to roll it in a ball, kind of get rid of some of the lines. And then I'm going to roll it out again. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my little square that I made. This is the smaller one. And I'm going to go all across this. Now, I'm going to end up cutting my circle shape out of this afterwards, because if you look at a real waffle, it has like some squares that are kind of cut off. So I want to make sure it looks realistic. So I'm going to just press these in like we did for the first one, but I'm going to make sure that I line up the squares under the row. You know, it's going to, the rows need to be lined up. Okay, so now I'm going to try to use this old Modelite container as my circle, and I'm going to see if I can just press it in and use it like that. If not, I'll have to cut around it. So I'll pull all the excess off before I pull the container off, and that way I don't have to worry about anything sticking back together. Okay, let's see what happened here. Perfect. Oh, that makes me so happy. I wasn't sure if this was going to work. So I'm just going to push in all those little crazy edges. So we need to shade it, just like we did the other one. I'm going to put some syrup on it, but I'm not going to put as much syrup on this one as I did the first one. And I'm going to kind of stick to the edges because I'm going to put some whipped cream and a cherry in the center of this one. Okay, so I've got some spackle here in white spackle, in a piping bag with the I'm using the 1M tip. And I'm just gonna pipe a dollop of whipped cream right into the center here, and then I'm gonna top it off with a cherry. So and then this is a cherry I made from my video on how to make fake cherries. If you haven't seen that, be sure to check it out. So I'm just going to top it off with that. And there's the round waffle. Let me know in the comments which one you like better. I think this one looks like Lego My Eggo, and the other one looks more like a homemade waffle. So let me know what you guys think. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.